Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com. Today is Sunday, August 18th, 2019, and this is Breaking Late News. And joining me after too long an absence, too long.
There clearly just was no news for months.
The returning champion, it's Travis. Hey, Travis, how you doing?
Oh, not too bad. It has been a very long time, though, hasn't it?
Yes. We the last time we got together to talk about comic book news or anything in the podcast feed was back in March. But then some things came up, and then we just haven't been able to get together until just recently. So, but we're back together to talk about the latest and greatest comic book news coming out of. We'll talk about some stuff coming out of San Diego Comic-Con. I know it's late. That's why it's called Breaking Late News. Wait. I did that wrong. I put the emphasis on the wrong word. It's Breaking Late News. That's why I call it this. We just collect some things that caught our interest comic book news-wise, and we get together and talk about them.
Yes, get ready, because this is going to be like a 14-hour podcast as we cover all 5 of those months we missed, right?
Oh, see, that is so cool, Trav. I should have thought of that. But no, we're not. That's not the plan here. That's just some San Diego Comic-Con stuff, and also just some stuff that's come out basically in the last few weeks in August, including some stuff that I just read about last night. So, you know, that boy, talk about that's breaking, all right, for me. But anyway, but Travis, it's been 5 months. How the hell are you?
Doing well. All in all.
So, well, and it's funny you say all in all, because Travis is Oddfellows Thoughts on YouTube, and there's been a major change in the YouTube world, hasn't there? Yeah,
I'm having production problems, I guess.
Well, not just you,
right?
Everybody, right? Anybody who is using, including myself, because normally these Breaking Late News episodes that Travis and I get together to chat about we have done historically on YouTube on the Hangout, YouTube Hangout. Wait, was it called YouTube Hangouts, or was it just Hangouts? Whatever the brand was, it doesn't matter, because Hangouts are done. YouTube, Google pulled the plug.
Yep. With basically nothing to replace it. I mean, basically go find a third party, something or other, to stream. And I don't know exactly why they did that. I mean, my initial guess is that those of us who were using it were probably not the people who are generating revenue for YouTube. And so the streamers, the people who are, streaming gaming and that sort of stuff and whatnot, aren't using that. They use, some sort of third party apparatus to stream their games and whatnot, would be my guess. And because we weren't generating revenue, why keep a program working that probably was causing them some other issue? I don't know. Any rate, yeah, as of August 1st, they pulled the plug on it. So now you can't just throw that thing up and go live randomly, because I tried doing that too, thinking, well, is there a way for me just to not have to have third-party software and go live? I can't do that either.
Oh, wait. So while I don't want people to get the wrong impression, because you're still recording and posting videos on your YouTube channel, but you have to now record them and then upload them, right? You can't. Yes. There's no live function on YouTube anymore.
That's right.
Well, that sucks.
You have to have a third party something in between that would allow you to go live, but you have to have some other product in between there to go through.
So I wonder if it was just besides the obvious, they're not making money on it, or it's costing them more money than whatever they're bringing in. But it's just an infrastructure thing. It was more video than they could handle without having people pay for it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, like I said, I don't know what the
pure speculation, of course.
Right. So yes. So it hampers me. Other than here recently, because this has been a summer of interruptions, it seems like, for me and my show and whatnot. But typically I would do a Saturday show where I would invite other comic book friends to come on, and we'd talk the prior week's books, whatever we got, whatever we feel like talking about, chat about whatever news might be out and whatnot. And now I don't have an easy avenue to jump on a Saturday night and just randomly invite my friends to hop on or whatever. There's a lot more logistics behind the scenes, and I've been busy and probably more just irritated with the idea of having to go and find some whatever that third party thing is going to be, and then convince anybody else who wants to be on the show with me to use the same third party products to make that work. It hasn't, kind of a thing. So it just hasn't been. I mean, I'm going to do something. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I'll go back to just doing my own by myself, talking about books, but there's not the same level of spontaneity. Sometimes I just would get the hankering to talk about something that had just happened or whatever, and being able to jump on and do that now is, a little more work. But, you guys who podcast, you work all the time because you don't just throw something up. You edit a whole bunch of whatnot. And,
it's not live. Yeah.
I'm kind of a lazy person. I don't want to have to edit a ton of stuff, and having to record it on a camera and then put it in my computer and then get it to YouTube takes a little more effort. So,
well, that's unfortunate. I was a big fan of Comic Book Roundtable, and often wished I could be on it, but I was always behind in my comic book reading, so I couldn't really talk about that week's books with you guys.
Well, and the other downside is, not that there's always lots of banter, but it was always nice to be able to talk about the books and people who didn't necessarily want to be on the show, but they could be in the comments live as it was happening.
Yeah.
So it would change the conversation sometimes, or give us something else to talk about, or the wonderful internet and its brain trust, when I could not remember something, somebody else would be able to come across, would be able to draw that information up for me and whatnot. And so there's not I got to find something because I will miss that fairly quickly, I think.
Well, and now that you mentioned that with the comments stuff, you and I are talking over Skype right now. But at least we have the video connection through Skype that we can see each other and interact that way. But yeah, we don't have people like Damien joining us on a lazy Sunday morning, and providing some comments and commentary. So right. I do miss that. I really do. But, anyway, we're hoping, I know, as soon as you told me about this change with, Hangouts, I immediately started looking at other options, and got only so far, but because I have a Twitch account. I think I was looking at Discord too. I don't know if that's a possibility, but because I follow certain people who have those accounts, and they do streaming things, or they do live things. There's another one, Travis, I'll tell you about after we're done here, that I just remembered. Yep. Well, no, I'll just mention now. I was recently on. I shouldn't say recently, because I don't know when this episode will come out in a couple weeks, but I was on a platform called Get Vocal when I was interviewed on Behind the Podcast with Adamo Barbieri.
Right.
And so doing that, Travis, I don't know what that would entail for people like us transitioning from Hangouts to that, but that was a pretty easy to use thing, and it reminded me a lot of Hangouts. So anyway, we'll have to look at these things, and hopefully be able to chat live, stream over the internet in the future. So anyway, anything else, Travis? Anything else you want to tell the fine listeners?
I don't think so.
All right. Shall we get into the news?
Sure.
Okay, so to start off with, Travis and I, in Breaking Late News episodes past, we have often highlighted the winners of the Comic Industry Awards, and as they do every year, the Will Eisner Comic Industry Awards were announced at San Diego Comic-Con, and I wanted to highlight some of the winners here, and maybe talk about some of these things, because Travis and I have read some of these books.
Yeah.
I certainly haven't read all of them.
So, do you remember the Eisners? Are they industry voted or is that public voted?
They are not public, as I recall.
Okay, the Harveys are. Okay, all right. I can't remember.
Yeah,
there's a different combination of.
We've had this conversation before, and I don't remember. No, I don't remember. But I'm pretty sure the Eisners are. You have to be in the. You have to be a published comic book person to participate, I believe.
Right.
So I'll just start off here, Travis, and we'll just go from there. So best short story was The Talk of the Saints by Tom King and Jason Fabok in the Swamp Thing Winter Special, which we both read, right?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think of that?
That was the best short story?
That's what they said.
I mean, my first thought was that got a nomination? I don't know. I mean, it was fine, but I didn't think it was that great of a. Awesome, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know. I can't remember now who was the other nominees, but I was like, really? Okay.
Yeah, I probably should have pulled up the
King's
nominees
year.
too.
That's just
for sure. Yes, for sure.
Simply that.
But I like you. I mean, I thought it was a fine story, but yeah, I was like, I don't know that I love Tom King and whatnot, but that story was a little not the best one that I could think of. So, but people have to wait and hear my favorites of 2019 episode in early 2020 to find out what my pick would have been for this category.
Well, I didn't read any of these other books though, so I brought it up. It's Get Naked in Barcelona, the Gastelantini's Here I Am, Life During Interesting Times, Supply Chains, and Talk of the Saints. So I have to admit, this is actually the only story of any of that I've read.
Okay.
So,
I think, yep, me too.
So we aren't very well read to have an opinion on that.
Yeah,
one,
no
I guess,
kidding.
so.
No kidding. Except the winner, we have not so complimentary things to say about. Okay.
Right.
Well, that's how it is.
Yep.
There's so many comics and so little money time.
100%.
All right. Best single issue one shot. And now I heard a lot on Twitter about this, and people that I listened to on other podcasts, Travis, who basically said that this comic made them cry. This is Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man, number 310 by Chip Zdarsky. It's interesting they say by Chip Zdarsky. Now, did he do everything in that comic? I know he was writing the book.
Yeah, I don't think so.
That's interesting and it looks like the other options here, or the other nominees, they list one or two people. So I have to look, but because like Black Hammer, Cthulhuese by Jeff Lemire and Emmy Lennox. So
Right.
That's the writer and artist. So maybe Zdarsky did do everything. I don't know.
He could have. I mean,
but yeah, the Black Hammer one is the only other one that I read. No, that's the only one I've read. I did not read the Peter Parker one, but based on the reaction I saw, it's something that I would like to read eventually. I take it you didn't read that.
No, I didn't. No, I don't. I have touched very little Spider-Man in a very, very long time.
Oh, well, maybe this is it. You should maybe get that issue and see what you think.
I enjoy most everything else that Chip writes. I'm not excited by the Spider-Man Through the Ages. I'm not,
Really?
I have not enjoyed that.
Ah.
And that may be just me and, I'm an old guy, get off my porch kind of thing. I don't know. So.
Well, now I'm really interested. I assume you will or have, perhaps more in the will, talk about this on a future Oddfellows Thoughts episode.
Sure. I think the last issue just came out, so I can beat it up pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I was waiting for the trade on that one, so maybe we can get together and talk about it.
But I mean, talk to Damien too, because you know other people that have read it and have been enjoying it. So
okay. Alrighty. Best continuing series was Giant Days by John Allison, Max Sarin, and Julia Madrigal.
I have to buy some trades of this I mean, I heard good things about it when it first came out, and for whatever reason, I just kind of never pulled the trigger on it and whatnot. And it's winning awards and whatnot, so I'm clearly missing something because it won multiple awards this year. So,
and it's ending this year too, because I just saw the last special that is being called the finale of this series, solicited in previews. So. I have the first trade. I like you, I heard when it first started coming out, I was like, well, this is a great book. So I'm like, okay, I'll check it out. I have the trade. I know I know I've said this multiple times on the show. I haven't read it yet. But I'm sure it's well deserved. It's interesting. It went up against, the Tom King et al. It says here, finally they're listing sort of other people, Tom King's Batman series. Black Hammer Age of Doom, Gasolina, The Immortal Hulk, which I have read the first trade of. Of course, I've read Batman and Black Hammer. So they're at least, so there's 2 or 3 that I've read out of the nominees here, and then Runaways as well. So out of this list, Travis, besides Giant Days, who would you pick if you were hard pressed to do so?
Immortal Hulk.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I like Tom King's Batman and whatnot, but I mean, it's not easily consumable, I don't think, for everybody. So, I mean, I saw lots of people completely losing their minds over the fact that Tom King won as many as he did because they don't like his Batman. They don't like period anything that he touches. So, yeah. But. Yeah, like I said, I haven't read Giant Days, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But I enjoy those other books.
Yeah.
So it's a good list of books.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of Tom King winning stuff, best limited series, Mr. Miracle by Tom King and Mitch Gerrits. And who else? Who was the Batman White Knight, Eternity Girl, Exit Stage Left, and X-Men Grand Design. Wow. Based on I've only read, the only other thing I read on this list is Eternity Girl. Which I thought was phenomenal.
Yes.
In fact, I would say, my pick. Yeah, I would say that over. I mean, Mr. Miracle was great. I put that more on the shoulders of Mitch Gerrits for me for that effort. But yeah, Eternity Girl, that I would have picked that one for sure. Out of those 2, as I haven't read the others.
Well, Grand Design is the only one I haven't. X-Men Grand Design is the only one of those books that I didn't collect.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Now that I noticed that, the 4 out of the 5 are DC books.
Yeah.
That's interesting that DC and Marvel got all the nods for the best limited series. That doesn't seem right. Anyway. Let's see here. What else do we got? Best new series, Gideon Falls by Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino.
Andre.
Sorry. Bitterroot, Crowded, Isola, Maneaters, and Skyward were the other nominees, and I haven't read any of those. None of those books.
Them all.
They're all Image books. Holy cow.
Yeah, I've read them all.
Wow. Do you agree with this choice, Travis?
For what came out, yeah, I guess. Because it's not, I mean, so some of these books haven't been out that long. It's not like you've got years. I mean, some of them have been out longer than others, so you've got more of them to look at. Yeah, that's probably what I would pick.
Okay. I'm going to skip some of these other ones, Travis. I'm not sure why I left them on the list, but best anthology I want to jump down to, unless you want to touch on some of those other ones.
Nope. Other than Giant Days also won for best humor publication.
Yeah, so. That's true. Very true. Very true. Best anthology. So anthologies are something that in concept I love. And there have been quite a few in the last few years, benefit anthologies. And the winner for this was one of those, which was Puerto Rico Strong, from Lion Forge. Also on the list is Where We Live, which was a benefit for the Las Vegas shooting the survivors of the Las Vegas shooting. And I anytime there's one of those, I buy one just to help support the folks that are receiving those monies, those donated monies. So I really quite enjoyed Puerto Rico Strong because there was a lot of stuff about Puerto Rico, the history, the people, the culture. I thought it was quite a fine anthology. Did you happen to read that one, Travis?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The other two on here that were listed is Femme Magnifique, 50 Magnificent Women Who Changed the World. And then the other one was Twisted Romance, which I know nothing about. So,
Twisted Romance. Alex DeCampi wrote all of the stories, I think, and then different art. Well, no, she wrote some of those stories, not all of them, and then different artists did the artwork on them.
Okay.
So the book was split in half. It would have two stories to a book, so you had a cover on one side. You read halfway through, and then you could flip it over, right? Like those old books where you had two stories and one on each side, kind of a thing. And they were just weird takes on romance kind of stuff. So, vampires or, and not when I say vampires, not sparkly vampires, but some other weird, strange kinds of things and whatnot. Fairy tale, twisted fairy tale kind of romance type things and that sort of stuff. There were some really good stories in there. There were some that I didn't care for, but I mean, as a whole, there were some good stories in there. There was also some prose, I believe, in part of it too. Kind of a deal, just kind of a mix of things and whatnot. So it was fun. It was fun just because it was different, if nothing else. I mean, because I'm not aware of a large breadth of romance type books. So I'm always curious if a genre that I'm not seeing a lot of traction, somebody's trying to do that. I always like to try and check it out just to see what is there and whatnot. I mean, I'm sure somebody's going to tell me there's tons of romance comics out there, and I'm just not buying the erotica that's out there, I guess, or whatever. But so that was interesting. It was fun. It was a fun read for that.
Well, based on that description, now I want to read it. See, you've sold it to me.
Oh, there you
go. Best New Graphic Album, right? Is that the one I have here? Yes. This is one by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies, which is interesting because that is a relatively recent publication. Mm-hmm. And it got the nod here. Other nominees, Bad Girls. Here's Alex DeCampi again. Mm-hmm. Come Again, Green Lantern Earth 1, Volume 1, Homunculus, and Sabrina. And the only other book on here that I read was the Green Lantern one, which a lot of people, as I recall, quite enjoyed it. I thought it was okay.
I tried to order it, and I can't order it anymore.
What?
Yeah. Because me, it's a Hal Jordan, so I'm always kind of like, don't really want to read Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, but I love the creators that are on the book, Karina Belchko and Gabriel Hardman, who doing Invisible Republic and other stuff. I like them. I like their work. So they're doing something I want to pick it up. I hadn't ordered it originally, and then I went to order it, and they canceled more publications of it. I mean, they were reproducing it, and then they canceled whatever the next printing of it was.
Wow.
Yeah. So I couldn't get it through Discount Comic Service.
So obviously the sales for that book was not very strong.
I don't know.
Or the resale orders were not. I don't know. But that's interesting. Did you read the Brubaker Phillips book?
I have not gotten it yet.
Oh, okay. I get that, like the Green Lantern one's like, because I always enjoy Brubaker Phillips collaborations, mm-hmm. And I buy everything that they do, and it was an okay story. I don't know that it deserved a best graphic album nod, but
I'm frustrated with Brubaker Phillips products now.
Oh, why is that?
The color different. They're color different,
yes.
and I'm sorry, they're not as good. They're not as good.
Yeah, wasn't that one?
The story is still excellent.
Yeah.
I still love the design of the pages and whatnot, but it's just, yeah.
Yeah, but I'll counter you with, so I agree partially, because they did use a different color artist on this book, but
On everything now.
everything now, you're right. But this was the first time I think that I saw the new a different colorist on their work, and I thought it was a nice change of pace for that kind of a story. Now going to their other book, which is coming out now, Criminal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems to it's different, and I don't actually know if I dislike it. It's just different. But I actually enjoyed the color artist on My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies.
Well, see, I saw it on Criminal before this came out. I'd already had exposure to it, and so yeah. So I'm not as excited to pick that up. I will. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'll pick it up at some point because, like I said, I really like Brubaker and Phillips' stuff. I just don't like the new color design.
Well, if you're interested, Travis, you can always borrow my copy if you want to decide if you actually want to own it your own. Same with the Green Lantern book. I'm more than happy to let you read that if you'd like.
Cool.
So you have the experience. You just don't have to shell out the bucks.
There you go.
Because it is Hal Jordan after all.
Exactly.
All right. Next category I want to highlight: Best Writer. This is another Tom King win. I like how they list for these nominees. They list some of the works that they've done. Of course, Tom King working currently on Batman. He did Mr. Miracle, Heroes in Crisis, and the Swamp Thing Winter Special. Interesting they would choose some of those things. Also on here, Alex DeCampi again.
Right.
Wow. So obviously, Alex DeCampi is somebody I need to start paying attention to. And it's not that I've never heard seen the name or anything. It's just that I haven't obviously bought a whole lot of stuff by Alex DeCampi. Jeff Lemire, Mark Russell. I mean, those two make sense to be on here. Kelly Thompson's on here.
Yeah.
Which is excellent. I just read West Coast Avengers recently, and a
lot of fun.
I enjoyed that a lot. Mm-hmm. And Chip Zdarsky is also on here.
And yes, Tom King won, and I have more than a few Batman friends who are cranky as all could be. They do not like his Batman run.
I know. I totally think they're wrong. I think this is going to go down in the history of Batman comics as one of the better runs.
Yep.
Of the last
Agreed.
80 years. But yeah, we shall see. All right. Best Writer Artist. Yes. Best Writer Artist, Jen Wang for The Prince and the Dressmaker from First Second, which I remember seeing in previews, but I haven't read it, is the winner here. Along with other nominees, Sophie Campbell, Nick Dranasso, David Lapham, and Nate Powell, and Tony Sandoval. So nice to see a lot of different comic book publishers here, including Image, but IDW looks like, IDW has two on here through Black Crown and Top Shelf. So that's nice. What's next here? Best Penciler Inker or Penciler Inker Team. So Tom King's going to share the love here with Mr. Miracle because Mitch Gerrard's won this. Mm-hmm. Runners-up, Matthias Bergara, Carl Kerschel, Sonny Liu, Sean Phillips, and Yannick Paquette. Well, I said earlier that Mitch Gerrard's, really tipped that book for me,
right?
Because visually, it's quite striking. But I get the feeling that if well, it's just my opinion. if they weren't using that 9-panel grid, then I think we would have seen some really beautiful stuff from Gerrard's on this book.
So, are you saying that the 9-panel grid took away from his art?
I'm saying that we would have seen more expression, more experimentation, perhaps. I don't know. I'm talking out of my butt here.
Sure. So I guess we'll find out. Well, I guess we'll find out in the future, unless of course they choose to continue to write a 9-panel grid.
Yeah, I'm really hoping
for everything they do.
I'm really hoping when they do Travis, what's the book they're going to do next?
The Adam Strange book.
Adam Strange. Thank you. When they do Adam Strange, that they don't do yet another 9-panel grid book. Anyway, but that's just me. Because with Eternity Girl, which is another book on here that I have read, like I said, Sonny Liu did a fantastic job on this and just played around with stuff on the page and different panel layouts, and I just really enjoyed that book. So
well, yeah, I mean, so like the parts where in parts of the book is told as a comic book. I mean, clearly it's a comic book itself, but it's told as a kind of a classic comic book. And when they move into classic comic book, they change the art style to match an old of the era comic book. When I first was reading, I'm like, oh, there must be two artists. I had to go back and look because my first assumption was, well, clearly this is how you one of the ways you meet your deadline or whatever. You get that second artist to do the flashback or to do the whatever kind of thing, and that wasn't the case. That book should have won an award somewhere. I don't know if it was for. It should have won the best book, but
it certainly deserves more awards.
I love Mr. Miracle. I love.
I know. Awesome. I don't want people to think that we're just tearing down the winner. In Mr. Miracle, because it was a good book. I really enjoyed that book. It's just there were other ones I thought deserved the nod more. Mm-hmm. All right. Best cover artist for multiple covers, it says. That's interesting that they would distinguish or delineate that for multiple covers.
Well, I think that's so you don't win for one person doesn't win for doing one cover, period, and that's it.
Well, but if that's the best cover, well, I mean, I guess the category is best cover. Well, no, it works either way. Best cover artist. If you do a fantastic one-shot cover, why wouldn't you deserve the win?
Yeah, good point.
Anyway, Jen Bartel won this over Nick Darrington, Carl Kerschel, Joshua Middleton, and Julian Tedesco. And I'll say, boy, Nick Darrington really did some awesome covers for Mr. Miracle. So, but Jen Bartel, I love her work. No thoughts on that?
I like the Hawkeye covers.
Okay,
those are my favorites.
I'm trying to remember those because I didn't get Hawkeye. I was going to get the trade. Hawkeye, is that the Kate Spencer? No, not Kate Spencer. I just named Manhunter. Right?
Kate Bishop.
Bishop. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just read Event Leviathan and right. Manhunter's in there, so that that's why. So I take it that this Hawkeye is the Kate Bishop Hawkeye series that was running.
Right.
Okay. I need to look those up.
You would enjoy it because it kind of it runs along the same vein as West Coast Avengers. It's a little more personal because it's just her, so she deals a little more with her own family issues and whatnot. But if you like West Coast Avengers, I think you would enjoy it too. She has Kelly Thompson has an awesome way of putting action, some real emotional content, and has really good comedic timing. And I think that having writing good comedic timing is hard, unless it's the artist that's doing it, because some artists just have a way of being able to deliver that. But she's done it across multiple comics with different artists, so that lends me to believe that it's her that's doing it, and I just really enjoy it. So
I take it back. I do have that. I there was a sale. I have it digitally. I just haven't read it yet.
Cool.
So I need to. That's the problem, Travis. I don't know if you found this. I know you don't read a whole lot of digital books, but when I buy all these digital books on these wonderful sales, like I could get a trade for $2 or something for just so I could read it. I have this. I'm amassing this collection of digital collections, and they sit there in the cloud, and I forget that I have them. Because for the paper books, of course, they're sitting on my bookshelf. I come into my office to do a recording, and I look over there and I see this massive unread collection of trades that I have. And so I tend to, I got to read those. And I forget about the ones I have, the pixelated ones that I have. So anyway. All right. Best. Well, I'll just add, I think Jen Bartel deserves that win. But anyway, best coloring. And I wanted to highlight this for a very specific reason. Because, my man, Matt Wilson won finally. Well deserved, I will say. But there's a lot of really good color artists on here. Jordi Belair.
Usually the list of best colorists, they're all really, really good. I mean, because I don't know, in this day and age of colored comics, coloring can make or break a book.
Yep.
I mean, it's amazing how coloring can really either pull you in or pull you out of a book. And all the people on this list help make these books. I mean, they really do. It's not just a matter of putting a red down or a green down or a whatever. I mean, they really, and they're different. It's not like how, in the case of Matt Wilson, who won, it's not how he colored Black Clouds, not necessarily how he colored Paper Girls, how he colored especially Wicked. I mean, they're just not the same.
No, yeah, the versatility of Matt Wilson's work, because I read a lot of comics where he's the color artist. I have long touted him as one of the better colorists in the industry, and it's just nice to see the person that you like win the award. But like you said, Jordi Belair does awesome work. Tamra Bonvillain, Nathan Fairbairn, and Matt Hollingsworth, all people whose books that they've colored, I've read. I've read something of theirs, and yeah, they do excellent work. It's and to your point just a second ago, Travis, about how a color artist can make or break a book. This is why color artists need to be their names need to be on the covers all the time.
Yeah,
not all publishers do that, and not all publishers do it consistently. But I think if you have a comic book where it's a color comic book, your color artist better be listed there. But that leads us to the next one, best lettering, they say, lettering, won by comics lettering veteran Todd Klein. Mm-hmm. And boy, the list of works that they have here, I mean, they're only listing like newer books, but, we read Todd Klein's work back in the 80s when we were growing up. So he's been around a long time. And he won this over, David Aja. I can't remember which way we pronounce that now. Not now, but just pronounce it. Jim Campbell. Well, that's a long list. Jim Campbell, Alex DeCampi.
Yeah, she letters a lot of her own books.
Jared Fletcher and Jared Fletcher. Yeah. So, wow. Alex DeCampi is just everywhere. Okay. Any thoughts on lettering? Because we just talked about how vital coloring is, but without lettering, you don't. I mean, you can, but you need a good letterer. I mean, I think when I was first getting into comics and reading comics, you really didn't pay attention to the lettering. It was just kind of there.
It was a necessity.
But I mean, it's a necessity. Right. But well, sort of, because you could do comics without lettering. Sure. But it's it's only been the last 20 years or so reading comics where I'm like, boy, this letterer is amazing compared to this letterer, sort of thing, where you see the artistry here, you see the thought that's put into it, and it's not just transcribing the words from the script onto the comic book page. It's not just that. There's a lot more to it. There's as much artistry to it, I think, as a penciler laying out a page and telling the story that way. Or at least it's a big component to it.
Yeah, for sure. And I have to admit, for me, rarely do I read a comic and go, wow, that was a good letterist. That letterist was awesome. When it does not work, though,
Oh, you noticed immediately. You noticed immediately. Yeah.
It can throw you out of the book. It can, it can just all kinds of stuff. So yeah. So I mean, it's unfortunate that, at least for me, and when I talk comics and whatnot, it is a invisible task that clearly I appreciate, but don't talk about unless it's the time that they've made some choice that's made it hard for me.
I admit for the most part, except like you said, except for things where they're just like, what the heck is going on here? When I start to really notice a letterer's work is when they are doing things outside of the normal word balloon type lettering on the page. And then when, for example, I'm forgetting who the letterer is at the moment, but if you read the Thor comics, that letterer does the font that they are using. The shape of the letters is different than your typical comic book. So to evoke a Norse god feel, I guess.
Mm.
And so I appreciate that. So I'm going to skip some of these again, Travis. I'm just going to get down to the awards. These.
We should at least briefly talk about best comic book related periodical or journalism.
Okay.
Because we all fall into that in some very amateur maybe category. We all are there, right? I mean that's right.
Okay. Well, and this is notable because it was a tie.
Right. Between Back Issues, which is edited by Michael Urey, and the Panel X Panel magazine, edited by Hassan. I don't want to say his last name because I'll murder it. I don't know Back Issue, but I know the Panel X Panel. I love that magazine. I read it both digitally, and I love he does YouTube videos talking about panel layouts. If you want to talk comics, and I love how he talks comics because he'll on the videos anyway. He's more of a gearhead version of talking comics in that he talks about page layout, why it is the way it is, why how motion works on a comic, how color works on the comic. He gets really into the nitty gritty of it, as opposed to, where a lot of us don't talk at the same depth that this is. And I know that's not for everybody, but I personally love it because in my head, when I read comics, I read it once just to enjoy it for what it is. And then I generally always go a second pass over stuff and analyze a page as to why it is put together the way it is or whatever. And so I love somebody else that does a way better job of talking about it than what I would if I were to attempt to. I really like it.
So I have the opposite experience here because I have read many back issue magazines. Mm-hmm. In fact, just like my growing stack of trades, I have a bunch of back issue magazines that I have not read yet. And I absolutely, Travis, you would love this book. You would love this magazine because it often delves into the time period in which we first got into comics, and really gets, they do interviews, the bunch of different interviews, and they spotlight certain characters and the history. Anyway, you would really like it. I should give you a bunch of mine to sample, but I have heard. So I think you said Panel X Panel, isn't it? Isn't it Panel by Panel? Isn't that what that's for?
Yeah.
I've heard of this magazine. Now it's a digital subscription magazine, right?
Yes.
Okay. I need to subscribe to this. Based on your description, and like I said, I've heard of it. I've heard good things about it, and then I hear it won the Eisner for this category, and to hear you talk about what the editor of that magazine has done, that is the kind of stuff that I totally love people talking about. Normally I get my fix when the actual artists on the comic books or on other shows talking about how they produce their books and talk about their craft. But it'd be nice to see how someone who I assume that editor is not a published comic creator.
He is a letterer now.
Oh, okay.
He does do some lettering work on some books. I'm drawing a blank now what he's currently lettering. There's a few indie books that he is doing some lettering on, but like he has excellent color theory. He's got a lot of there's a lot of videos out. Go check out his YouTube videos. They're not long.
Yeah,
they're
definitely
10 minutes or less kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at those, man, because that stuff I love I love people talking about that stuff because I'm not as well versed in the art realm. So yeah, excellent. Well, that's cool. I'm glad you stopped on that one. That was the only one I was considering talking about out of the others. But so if there's anything else here, Travis, you want to touch on, please do.
Nope.
Otherwise, I'm going to skip down to the Bill Finger Excellence in Comics Writing Award, which was given to E. Nelson Bridwell and Mike Friedrich. And I recognize both these names from comics that I read in my youth, so it's nice to see that they're being recognized. And the Russ Manning Promising Newcomer Award went to Lorena Alvarez for whose works include Nightlights and, did I write that correctly? Hiktoa, a Nightlight Story.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with either of those works or that creator, so I should probably check that out. And then finally, the Hall of Fame, which we have some names here, Travis, that are important to us and well known as well. But many people were inducted into the Will Eisner Hall of Fame. Jim Aparo, of course.
Why is it 2019? And
I know, right?
Just now getting him in? Are you kidding me?
Well, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, come on.
Well, some of those people, it's like.
I know.
Like,
what does
Jim
it take
Aparo
to get into the Hall of
every
Fame?
Batman comic for like 15 years. It shocked me to see that name.
Yeah.
That's just a name I would have assumed would have been in a long time ago.
Yeah.
At least some of these people, they're getting in while they're still alive. So,
well, others include June Mills, Dave Stevens, Maury Turner, and I will admit, I'm not familiar with those creators. Bill Sienkiewicz.
Yeah.
That's a duh. I mean, come on.
Right.
Wendy and Richard Pinney, Paul Levitz, Jeanette Kahn, and I said before, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez.
Right.
Yeah. The three that really interest me are Aparo, Sienkiewicz, and Lopez. So, yes, they deserve those. Not that the others don't. It's just those are the ones. Those are the artists that, like I said, I grew up reading, and they definitely deserve that kind of recognition.
Right. Influence my tastes on superhero comics, at least for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Jim Aparo is my Batman.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if someone says Batman, the first images that come in my head are Jim Aparo drawn Batman.
Lopez was my Superman.
Yeah.
And Sienkiewicz was at first, because when I first started reading his stuff, he was kind of a Neil Adams clone. Because I remember a run on Moon Knight that he did that was very Neil Adams-ish. And then he started experimenting. And then you get him on, say, New Mutants, yes.
Yeah.
And now, man, I didn't. So I really appreciate that. I really like that more quote unquote realistic style in comics when I was growing up. You know, like I really liked George Perez, Neil Adams, and so when I started seeing Sienkiewicz doing this more expressionistic type stuff. I was like, what the heck is this, right?
I love it.
And I remember you because you were reading New Mutants, right? Back when it was coming out. And then, so I was reading those comics after you, and it took me a while to start appreciating that. And now, boy, I love his work.
Yeah.
I really wish so I don't know how long ago this was now. I think it was when I was at Heroes Con. That was several years ago now, or at least a few years ago. He announced that he was going to be doing a comic with Kelly Sue DeConnick.
Right.
And I was just excited as hell for that. and I'm still waiting.
Right.
I don't know what's going on with it, but man,
like
I
a
wish...
lot of those images, new image announcements. Maybe we'll see it, and maybe we won't.
I'm
all excited if nothing else. But
yeah, I'm really excited for that one. So I really hope we get to see that soon.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's enough of the Will Eisner stuff. Well, I figured we just burned through those, and we've been talking about those for a while now. Oh yeah, it's been almost an hour. Okay, let's move on, shall we, Travis? I'm going to skip unless you want to talk about the Marvel 29. Well, Marvel 2099, Marvel's bringing that back. Did you ever read the 2099 stuff?
I missed that era of 90s comics.
Yeah.
And
me too.
And I feel like I missed nothing. So I don't know. I know it exists. I know there are characters that came out of it. I do not care.
I think the only one now, I know basically nothing of this, but what I do glean from it is that the Spider-Man 2099 book was probably pretty popular because that character keeps popping up.
Right.
And I think that they are doing a new Spider-Man 2099 book. And he also appeared in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, right? Yes, at the end.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's much love for that character. Okay. Next up, and Travis and I talked about this a little bit before we pressed the record button, but so we all know now that Jonathan Hickman is working along with the artists on House of X and Powers of 10. So those are the 6-issue miniseries that are relaunching the X-Men for the new age. Right? Mm-hmm. Are you reading those two books?
Yes, I am.
Both of them. Okay. And I of course, am waiting for the trade. And I kind of regret that now because it is Hickman. I love Hickman.
You should have been reading it as it comes out.
No, don't tell me that. Damn it. Anyway, but what they recently announced was coming out of those two miniseries are the new ongoings. And there's a bunch of them. There's a new X-Men book. New Mutants. What else is there, Travis?
Excalibur, yes. Marauders, Fallen Angels,
right.
X-Force.
Lots of different things.
I'm disappointed.
Oh, really? Why?
Yeah. Well, so one of the struggles for me being a Chris Claremont of the 80s era of X-Men, where there was the X-Men book, the Uncanny X-Men, and there was then the New Mutants, and that was kind of what there was. I was hoping that Hickman took over the book. They were basically, canceled all the other X-Men titles. And I thought, we're going to kind of potentially clean house and we'll have 1 or 2 books. Cool. That's something I can keep up with. I'd like to get back into, I like the X-Men. I'd like to get back into the X-Men. As of up to this point, it felt like there was too much of it going too many directions and too much event type stuff where you felt like, to really get the story, you were having to read 4 books while something was going on. And to me, that's like an immediate turnoff to have to try and chase all that stuff. So I was really excited for this because I thought we were going to get, an X-Men book, maybe a New Mutant book, and that would be the end of it. But now there's 5 books. And how long is it before something's happening across all of those things that I would have to feel like I either going to miss large portions of the story or have to get them all. And another thing it looks to me like they did, there are X-Men characters I like and X-Men characters I don't give a crap about, right? And they spread the ones I liked out across them all being in one place. They kind of threw them out across all of these things. So I have to read books with characters I do not care for. Or I think are dumb, or whatever, along to try and read. So I'm out. I'm out.
Really?
And
altogether?
If I had known, probably, to be honest with you, if I had known that it was going to be this much, I probably wouldn't have picked up the House of X and the Power of 10. I probably wouldn't have picked those up. Not that they're not interesting reads. They are interesting reads. But yeah, so I was excited and now I'm immediately not excited again.
Okay, so X-Men is a franchise that I never really got into.
Right.
I read some of your books back in the day. I think Greg also was reading X-Men, some X-Men stuff. I just never really got into them, right? So the only draw to me for this new relaunch is his Jonathan Hickman.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really care that there's 5 other books coming out of this. I may get the Jonathan Hickman written ones because that's X-Men and New Mutants but he's co-writing New Mutants with Ed Brisson.
Yeah. The art's going to be awesome on that.
Oh, well, yeah.
His art, I love his art. So that
Yes.
is and who knows when it actually comes time to actually order the books, I may cave, but.
Well, so, okay, before I get into that, the other thing was, speaking of, the artist, the writers and artists on here, the only other one that, says to me, you must buy because of who's involved is Excalibur, because Teenie Howard's writing it with Marcus Toe penciling.
Mm-hmm.
And I like both their work. Plus I also kind of like the Excalibur corner of the X-Men universe.
Yeah.
I mean, I read the original Excalibur when it came out and I got that for a couple of years. And so I've always enjoyed that. But this has Rogue, Gambit, Jubilee. Wow. I'm not enunciating very well. Gambit, Jubilee, Richter, and Apocalypse.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I don't really
team. Just I'm excited about Rogue.
Yeah.
I
like Captain Britain.
I don't like. Yeah.
But this is a
Gambit.
new Captain Britain. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, I see in parentheses you have here, what do you think of Hickman ignoring current continuity in favor of producing his vision? I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'm all for anybody taking anything that has 50 years worth of the same, we're going to, whatever. And then just, no, I'm just going to do my own, whatever. Totally.
So continuity be damned. Tell a good story.
Yeah.
Yes.
100%. Especially if you're going to tell me up front, continuity be damned.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then awesome. I'm in for the ride. Let's cool, kind of thing. Because then I don't have to worry about leveraging whatever. And that works for me because a lot has happened to the X-Men world from like 1990 to now.
Mm-hmm.
You just named characters that I've never read a comic with a minute, other than by accident. Apocalypse and some of those characters.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, like with House of X and Powers of 10 and other Marvel and DC books, especially if they are miniseries, I've decided for the most part I'm just going to wait for trades on those.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a little cheaper and take up less space in my office. So even though I'm hugely curious what Hickman is doing with X-Men, like I said, I didn't really read X-Men, so I don't know. I mean, this is a perfect jumping on opportunity for me because I don't know. I don't have all that back history, that baggage of what came before. Mm-hmm. So this is like a brand new superhero story that I could dive into, but I will wait. especially if they're going to do the double shipping $3.99 price point thing that the Marvel is and DC now does quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, all right. Here's another example of this. I gotta decide on this one because this is we mentioned this before, the Adam Strange series. So this is going to be, it's 12 issues, right? Just like Miracle. I almost said Miracle Man. Mr. Miracle.
I don't remember.
I think it, or maybe I'm just assuming it is. But this is the one by Tom King, Mitch Gerrits, and Doc Shaner is along for the ride, working on this. So I don't know. I want to read it, of course, because I like King and Gerrits together. Shaner is awesome. Highlighting again, King and Gerrits are starting this or creating this niche in DC Comics where they're examining these kind of not mainstream characters or not as well known today characters for sure. Adam Strange is probably more so than Mr. Miracle fits that bill. And Adam Strange is always one of those characters who's like, oh, he's interesting when he shows up in a story, but never really got into him he's a device.
Lots of times he's just a device to get from point A to point B. Ultimately, of times is how he's used in more of a modern era. In our era of reading comics, it seems to be largely it's more of an excuse to get somebody off the planet Earth or whatever. Seems to largely be the case. Yeah,
and it's interesting too how they are. There's a focus on the Ran Thanagar War, which was a series from the 2000s, I believe. I'm
nervous about that part of it, just because. Have you read Heroes in Crisis?
I have,
and I don't know exactly what your opinion is of. Did that hold up as far as them billing it as being a comic that had to deal with
no
post-traumatic stress and that sort of stuff?
No.
So I just get nervous if this is going to be hinged around that, and in that kind of context, I get nervous. Now, I say that, but one of my favorite comics of probably the last 10 years is Sheriff of Babylon.
Yep.
Which the two of them, which Gerrits and King do, clearly addresses, war in some fashion. Specifically the Iraq war and whatnot. But on a very personal kind of level. So if they're going to explore something like that, I'm super excited because they did an awesome job of that. Is all of their stuff gonna be hinged around war?
Yeah, it's.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that
Miracle was too. Yeah,
right. I know that Gerrits is into. He's the military, and he did Punisher. I know he does. War type stuff and whatnot. So I just don't know if this happens to be their thing, because everything they've done. That's kind of what Mr. Miracle was. There is a war. It's the pretext around a war. I wouldn't say that's what the comic's about, but
so no. It is just the backdrop.
I'm not saying this is going to shy me away. For me, this is a no-brainer. I'm picking it up as it comes out.
Oh, really? Okay.
100%. There's no doubt in my mind. I'm getting this. But that aspect of it, you grapple with the dark questions of that war. Okay, so we'll see that aspect of it. But.
Well, King is certainly he's certainly exploring that part of life, right? That part of his life,
right?
And so I find that interesting on that level. But does it work on these characters? Is the question, right?
Right.
So yeah, it'll be an interesting. It will be interesting. Yes. Damn it, Travis! Now I have to really think about this one.
Yeah, you can stick to your guns. It's not going anywhere. I just like to get it as it's coming out because I like serialized comics, and I like to be able to talk about it as it's.
I know that's always the problem, right? But then my show is not that. I don't do as you have been doing a weekly show about current comics. I usually just pick and choose and highlight things I want to talk about. So I don't really have to do that. I don't have to buy comics in that way in order to fill the show. But I like to be part of the conversation, like on Twitter or with you and stuff. It's like, well, I haven't read that yet. I got to wait 6 months or I got to wait a year.
Right.
So anyway, we'll see. Did you, Travis, I can't remember if we talked about this on one of the Breaking Late News episodes or if I mentioned on a previous episode with George or somebody with Ahoy Comics doing this steel cage match type thing where they had 3 different stories. So they released this, I think it was a book.
Yeah, anthology, basically.
Yeah.
3 stories in it.
3 stories in it, and then we were supposed to vote. The readers were supposed to vote.
We talked about it when it was announced.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I did not pick it up.
What's that?
I did not pick it up.
No, I didn't either. I was curious which one would win, but boy, here's a twist. So apparently the editor-in-chief, Tom Peyer, issued a statement a while back here saying that there was some irregularities with the voting?
Wait, are we supposed to take that serious? What he's written?
Oh, you're not taking it at face value, Travis?
No. Does that sound sincere to you? It doesn't sound sincere to me at all. It sounds like complete and utter BS. First and foremost, how can the editor-in-chief be one of the writers of one of the stories, and then he gets to help determine whose votes counted and whose don't? No, it's all BS. I'm betting nobody voted. And to say I don't know. To me, there's a couple ways of looking at this. It's written really goofy. It's written insincere, or it's written marginally tongue-in-cheek. Oh, the election's been rigged because, I don't know, the Russians did something or whoever. And so they're all going to get their own title. Yay, which is going to be their plan in the first place. I don't know. I couldn't read that because I hadn't heard that there was voting irregularities. You sent me this thing. I read his statement. I'm like, am I supposed to take this serious? Because to me, this is all tongue-in-cheek and BS, right? No?
Wow, I did not take it as
okay, just me. I'm just cynical. I guess that's what it is.
I'm not. That's not to say that I didn't question it, because it seems like a really odd thing. And the first thing that came to my mind was, well, how do people vote on this? And how do you know there was, as he says here, due to the alarming evidence of tampering?
Well, because they had way more votes than they sold issues.
Well, yeah, right? I suppose
so. Is that part of the conversation? We only sold X number of issues and we had 10 times the amount of votes. How does that work?
Yeah.
How can you vote for it if you haven't read it?
That's true. So,
I want to know who it was spiked in. They didn't. That's the part I'm irritated with. If it was supposedly thrown in one person's favor and almost all the votes happened in one day, possibly within 1 minute, well, which title? Which one of those?
Yeah. Need some maybe a little more transparency here too. At the very least, Travis, to alleviate these spurious accusations of tomfoolery.
Well, the way it's written, I mean, I don't know, it cracked me up.
Yeah. He is kind of some of the language he's using is kind of, it does. I could see why you would see it this way.
It sounds like something that would have been written in a early 70s comic book. Just the language, the actual language that's used. It just. But fear not. I mean, I don't know. Seriously?
I call upon all relevant authorities to investigate this unspeakable outrage and bring the offenders to justice. I think you're right, Travis.
There's nothing real about that. Yeah. It is utter and complete shenanigans. I'm sorry. I can't take that serious. I laugh in his face, and I don't mean that meanly, but that's just hilarious. I just think they're going to produce all the books anyway. Yeah.
All right. Well, so what the listeners don't know, maybe they didn't hear this, but as Travis was going off there at first, I was just dying, trying not to laugh and really loud. Okay. That's why I love talking to this guy. All right. Did you pre-order Catalyst Prime 7 days?
I did not.
When it was first announced?
Mm-mm.
So I was going to and decided. No. Or was this the one where I did, and then I got the notice that it was canceled? I can't remember. There's a couple like that. But I just find it interesting that it was in the most recent. It was in the August previews I saw again, and I see this announcement that it's been pushed back 3 months to a new October debut. It was originally announced to run from July to September, so. Some reason it's late, very
well.
Late.
Could that have to do with the fact that they merged, got bought out, or whatever you want to call it, with Oni Press, and so all the whatever that is affects that?
Possibly, yeah. They don't really say in the article as far as I could tell, but yeah, it was interesting. There's a lot of delays on stuff. Going through the news articles, Travis, preparing for this, this comic was delayed another 7 weeks. This comic's delayed, X number, whatever. It's just amazing that, we can't get comics on time. Especially from DC Marvel. DC, especially right now. That's the one I noticed a lot. There were a lot of things that were not coming out on time.
Only if Jeff John's name's attached.
Well,
to
that is true. They're the two books I'm thinking of specifically. Those are Jeff John's. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't be purchasing any monthly Jeff Johns books anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I will seriously think about it myself. But I got to finish the ones I do have. Well, the one I have. I wasn't getting Shazam, so.
Yeah, I was.
So speaking of things that aren't coming out on time, or I guess not coming out.
Yeah, depending on who you talk to.
Yeah,
right?
that's true. Wildcats was announced. Well, it was originally supposed to debut this month, or was it last month? I can't remember at what point I got this news article here. I'm going to look that up real quick. When did this news article come out? It was August. Okay.
Well, it's August. Well,
Yep.
And it should have been, I think the book was supposed to be out the end of August, the beginning of September, because, I mean, there are ads.
Yeah.
In the current DC books, there are ads for Wildcats.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, 6-issue series supposed to be coming out. This is by Warren Ellis, and who's the artist?
I'm trying to blank on the names. They were the artist on Border Town, that canceled Vertigo book. What's his name? Can't remember his name.
Jim Chung. Right?
No. I don't think so. That doesn't sound right.
Oh, Ramon Villalobos.
Yes, thank you.
Jim Chung must have done one of the covers. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So, what's interesting about this? It's not just delayed like some of the other books. It was removed from DC's publishing schedule, and all orders through Diamond Comics were canceled in late July. And then there was, I think there was a tweet from the artist, basically saying, it was from Jim Lee. Sorry. Jim Lee basically said they're working on it, trying to get the schedules, blah, blah, blah. It's coming out, essentially.
Right. And then the artist then said that too.
Oh, you're right.
That,
you're right.
I mean, the book's coming out and whatnot. But from Warren Ellis's perspective, it's done. Well,
yeah.
Maybe it'll see the light of day someday, but it's done. So I don't know if that's, Warren Ellis has had a shaky relationship with DC in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was kind of a shocker to have him come back to do Wildstorm, to be quite honest with you, because, I mean, he's had some pretty candid things to say about some of his treatment or the way he thought things went at DC in the past when he worked there in the past. So I don't know how much that is coming to light again. I don't know what clearly we don't know what all the hiccups really are. I mean,
right.
Is the artist that far behind? Did they not like what he was doing and suddenly decided it needed to be changed? I remember when this whole came out, Warren Ellis was going to be the curator of the whole Wildstorm stuff. We were going to have the Wildstorm comic. They're going to have quite a few spinoffs come out of that kind of a thing. And then it just kind of, about 3 or 4 months into Wildstorm, all the energy around that kind of went away. And I don't know if that's because obviously DC is constantly going through a lot of upper management changes. And when I say upper management, outside of the world of comic books,
right.
Upper management type changes that affect all that. They've got new buyers. They have new overlords now, AT&T. So I don't know how much of that works its way down into editorial and then down to the creative people that are making the book and whatnot. But to me, it just seems really surprising to have it canceled, or, oh no, it's going to show up someday, but we can't even tell you when. I mean, at least the Catalyst Prime thing, they can tell you it's going to be 3 months late or whatever. This is, they can't tell us when it's happening. And there are literally ads in the comic book.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, obviously they were moving forward with this, and then there's a hiccup. So yeah, you're right. Villalobos publicly said that he had deadline issues, but as far as he knew, the series wasn't canceled. And then Warren Ellis, in his Orbital Operations newsletter, announced, this is a quote, "Wildcats isn't coming out." It's pretty definitive from one of the creators. "There is hope that it will be resolicited at a later date, but for right now, it's canceled." He says, "I was 2 scripts into it with chunks of other parts done and a full and lengthy treatment for 6 issues, so it's kind of frustrating for me too." So, that's the turmoil at DC is really interesting. But then I also was never into the Wildstorm stuff, so
I was going to get it. I enjoyed
really?
the Wildstorm run, this latest run. It was a lot of fun. I liked it. It was interesting just to have something that's a little different. I mean, I'm kind of familiar with some of those characters, read stuff from some of those characters before. This is kind of a retreatment, a different kind of thing. So I was on board to check it out because when all this stuff came out, when the Wildstorm was, doing all this stuff, that was during that gap of time I wasn't really reading comics. I started reading Wildstorm comics right about the time it got canceled. I went to my first Emerald City Comic Con. I went to a Wildstorm panel because I had no idea. I knew some of the creators that were in it and whatnot. They started talking about some stuff and then I don't know, 3 months later they shuttered the doors on the thing. So, I don't know, as an imprint anyway. So, yeah.
Well, hopefully someday we'll get it. I mean, I always enjoy a Warren Ellis comic, but
yeah, and that's where I am too. That's why I was getting it when it was coming out. And Alan Davis Hunt, I like his artwork. So, yeah.
Okay. Speaking of DC turmoil, Travis, I found this really interesting. This was going to be like because whenever we get together and talk about stuff, I always like to have like one thing to kind of end on and chat about. But there's another thing that came up just recently. But so this was going to be that thing originally. I wanted to get your opinion about. So, at the Meet the DC Publishers panel at San Diego,
that right there means it's loaded.
Our favorite Dan DiDio, our favorite co-publisher Dan DiDio, he went off on these this slew of reprint comics that are coming out. Specifically, he mentioned the facsimile editions that DC is now publishing, and
which is weird. He's helping publish them, and he's going off on them.
I know, right? So what he said was, we do these, this is a quote, we do these facsimile editions where we reprint older issues of comics, including all the old ads and stuff, which I don't understand this. They're also doing the $1 comics, reprints, which those are okay for me, to me. And he says, in some cases, these are selling more than the new comics with these characters. People are more interested in buying the stories from 30 or 40 years ago than the contemporary stories, and that's a failure on us. We should be focused on moving things forward, always pushing the boundaries and finding new stories to tell. That's how we'll survive and grow this industry. And I saw a lot of commentary responses from people, and for example, the gist of one complaint about his comment about the buying store or the old stuff outselling the contemporary stuff is, well, basically publish better comics was the response. Do better with the modern stuff, and people won't be anxious or not anxious, wanting the old stuff. But I don't know. I totally see his point.
Well, I agree with his first statement. The first part of the quote you said, that they're buying the 30 or 40 years ago, buying more of them than the contemporary stories. And that's a failure on us.
Sure.
Agree.
Yes.
The second quote there, we should be focused on moving things forward, always pushing the boundaries and finding new stories to tell. That's how we'll survive in this growing industry.
You don't agree with that?
I agree with that, but he is the culprit of not doing that. He is going to be writing a Metalman's comic that has to do with Magnus being in love with Platinum or whatever. How many times has that story been told? A gajillion. Why is he retreading it then? He is guilty of what he's bitching about.
That's the only thing I have a problem with, is that he does have some input at the very least on what gets published, right? So
Clearly
why are these things going forward then?
I mean, I don't have a problem with those facsimile comics if that's what you're interested in buying one. I mean, personally, I would try and hunt down, a moldy, beat up version of the original over buying it new, but there's nothing wrong with buying it new either. I don't know. I think the ads are funny. So for me, part of the fun of picking up a really old comic is I'm doing go, God, I remember seeing that as a kid or whatnot. So the whole reprint of the entire thing, that's cool by me.
Yeah.
It is sad though that if a comic from a billion years ago, but it's not like they're just reprinting some random comic though. They're reprinting a key issue generally of something. So the implication that it's just some off the shelf version of Firestorm is selling 50,000 copies and the latest issue of The Outsiders is only selling 13,000 copies, that's not true. That's apples to oranges, in my opinion, just in general, kind of a thing. And it's just, to me, it's bizarre that he's bitching about it, because why is he putting it out? It had to have been some sort of marginal idea that he had, or somebody's going around him to his bosses above him going, hey, let's put out this, right? I mean, to me, it just, from a managerial standpoint, it sounds just bizarre, kind of a deal.
Or, they thought, well, we'll follow this trend because I think Marvel started it recently.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So of course
True
DC, DC decides, okay, we're going to start doing these $1 comics and facsimiles. So,
right. Well, and you've got some stuff that I don't know if you're going to talk about it at that thing. Joe Hill was at that, and he kind of responded to it. And I think there's something to be accurate for what Joe Hill has to say about it. And the fact is that maybe I don't have that comic anymore that I had as a kid, or I don't want my kid manhandling my my near knit copy of whatever it is, and I can go buy one off the shelf and go, oh, these are the kids. This is the comics I was reading as a kid. Or I personally am like, if I'm not a comic book collector, but I'm somebody who read comics as a kid, I can walk into a store and go, I remember loving that comic as a kid. Buying that and going, here, Junior, here's a comic I thought was awesome when I was 10 years old. And
that's basically what Joe Hill said. So yeah, you did a nice job summarizing his comments. But DiDio did after that Meet the Publishers panel, he did go maybe do a little spin afterwards. He says, where my concern comes from is more about the over-reliance on nostalgia. And, keep in mind the point you just made about him on Metal Men. Speculator marketing, variant covers, and a lot of things that seem to be driving numbers and sales to give the appearance of a healthy industry, but it's not built on the ongoing success of the individual titles in order to keep those numbers successful and maintained. If we're creating these artificial highs on a continual basis, if something pulls that apart, does it break the infrastructure overall? And how do we change these buying patterns in that fashion to build something that is more healthy business going forward? Well,
hilarious.
Stop doing it.
Right. He's at fault. He's at fault. He's at fault back from New 52 on. He's at fault for at least his 35% or whatever the heck it is right now that DC is supposedly has. He's at fault. These ideas are his ideas more than they're anyone else's. I would bet money on it.
Well, okay.
More so than Jim Lee's ideas.
Well, I can't speculate on that, but I will say, I will defend him in this. You mentioned the New 52. That was, I thought, a bold move on their part.
Oh, 100%.
Doing something different. Ignoring previously published continuity, what was it at that time? That was 2011. So
I would fight whether or not they ignored it, though.
Well, okay, but I mean, I think the genesis of the idea was that they were going to start fresh-ish.
But then they would tell new stories, which they didn't. They just repeated what was already there.
Right.
They relied on nostalgia.
Right, but I think that's because they didn't have the editorial leadership. And the fact that they're feeding, quite frankly, they're feeding us. They're really not doing their part to reach out to new readers, to younger readers, to get them in. I think that's kind of what he's trying to say. He's just not doing a very good job of it. But it seems like, especially DC and Marvel, they're really catering towards old readers.
So who does he expect to do it then? If he's making this plea of, hey, we shouldn't be doing this way. Dude, what is your job? What is your job?
Right. Lead. Stop following and lead.
It's like being on a boat and drilling holes in it saying, oh my gosh, the boat is sinking. You're the one that's drilling the holes in it. Stop.
Yeah. Well, he has corporate overlords too. So,
I understand that.
I appreciate
his to prove to the corporate overlords that this is what's going to make money.
Mm.
I think we've had a discussion for whenever it was the New 52 came out. Since then, we've had discussions about the fact that comic book companies aren't concerned with legacy. And I don't say legacy as in the characters. I mean legacy as in what they're producing now. They don't seem concerned with that this will mean something later. It's consume it now, and who cares what it means later on. And to me, I think it's a fallacy in that they're not trying to make great works. They're trying to make, for me personally, they're trying to make easily consumable pop culture that has no meaning afterwards. And I think we're at a point now where comics have enough history that they should be looking at stuff as having a legacy also.
Okay. I see your point, but I'll counter with comics from the beginning were always about the entertainment of the day, and they were disposable entertainment.
But they're not that anymore, though, are they? Or is it my mistake because my era has made them something more than?
I think it has more to do with that than.
Could be.
But I agree with you that well, it's really easy for us as fans of the medium to say, well, you just need to do a better job, or tell better stories or whatever, right? But I don't think any of these creators go into creating a comic book on a month-to-month basis going, I'm just going to create a mediocre comic.
100%, because you have to live with that. And I mean, I get that as somebody who's attempted to create things. Once it's out there, it's out there. And so if you didn't get enough sleep and you half-assed that issue, it's there forever. It's permanent. It's part of the comic book world. I get that. And I don't, and even if I'm talking about a comic and I say, oh, this creator phoned this in, do I really think that's the case? Probably not. It's just my lazy way of describing the fact I don't think that somebody did their job somewhere along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But for Dan to be making these statements in the position that he is in, it to me is absurd. Cool. If you recognize that these are the problems, what are you doing? Who's he talking to? Who is he talking to think that him making these statements is going to is going to fix it? He's talking to the comic book market. So he's talking to the comic market. That was him talking to the other people who sell the comics. They're just trying to sell what you're giving them. So don't tell them that this is the problem. He's the problem.
Yeah.
If he can recognize it's the problem, what is he doing to fix it?
So
pump the brakes on variant covers. So what if that other company's doing it? So that's the other problem is, that other company's doing it, so we need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So what? I think to some degree, variant covers to a degree are part of the industry now. I mean, they are. I mean, every company puts out a variant cover of at least the first issue of things. They just do. It's just, it is what it is. And I don't think you're going to stop that. I mean, but I think there's the larger variant where you've got the 10 different variants, and some of those variants are like $200 comics, and you got to buy, the whole, the market, the part of the market where it's forcing comic book, the comic book stores to buy 70 issues of something to get that one variant that maybe somebody in their store is going to want. That's shenanigans, and that needs to stop. I don't think that helps the industry at all.
Well, do you? What if this is Dan's signaling that DC is going to start doing that kind of stuff, and he was kind of priming the pump with the retailers to let them know. But that doesn't. I don't know. That's that's obviously pure speculation on my part. But what if he's doing that? And so, if they start doing this, are the fans going to support this? Are the shops going to support this?
Doing what? They're putting more energy into their stories, or sure they are,
and not doing variant covers, not reprinting old material. The to his points. What he thinks is wrong here.
I guess we'll see if that's the case. Cool.
I mean, it's one thing for us to say, yeah, like you say, it's cool, do this, but then are we going to be buying the books? Well, we only buy the books because we're either interested in those characters, that take on the characters by the creators, or we follow a creator no matter what they're doing.
Right.
It really, it's a very, I don't know. I wouldn't want to be Jim Lee or Dan DiDio or any other major comic book publisher trying to figure out what the hell we, the readership, want.
Well, yeah. I mean, the reality is that there's a lot more out there to choose from.
Well, yeah.
And so the reader base is much thinner than what it was. And they just need to all change their business plans. Their business plans can't be based on having comic books that sell 100,000 plus issues. It can't be based on that. It has to be based on something else. Now, don't get me wrong. I have no idea, because if I did, I'd quit my job and I would go work for one of these people, or attempt to work for one of these people. If I had the business plan as to how to make that work, I don't know. I just know I work in an industry that needs to change its business plan. And until it does, we're going to struggle. And then that's where the big two are at. Their business plan needs to change. My assumption is that these smaller companies that are up and coming and people are starting to talk about and be a little more excited about, the Image Comics Vault, some of those types of things and whatnot, they clearly have a different business plan. Their business plan is not based on selling 100,000 issues of a comic. It can't be. So it's based on something different. The big two, who unfortunately are the linchpin of the comic industry. If both DC and Marvel shuttered their doors tomorrow, we would have no comics. As we know it, it would completely shut down, because they're the machine. But that machine has to be figured out how to retool itself and do something differently, because the audience, I think the audience is just as big as it ever was. It's just there's a lot more competition. If I don't like what's going on in American comics, there's tons of other stuff that qualify as comics, quote unquote, being produced other places. It's really easy for me to get access to, manga style stuff or European comics or whatever else if I don't like what's going on. So I think that's part of it is there's just a lot more competition, and the people who are consuming the stuff are consuming it differently in a larger kind of a way. They just got to figure out how to do that. Like I said, I don't have the answer to what that is. I mean, the easy answer is make better comics. And that is true. That is true. They need to, but they also have to accept that unless it's that one rare kind of a thing, which only comes along every once in a while now, they have to have a different plan. They have to be able to survive on only selling, 60,000 copies of something, not routinely 100,000 on something.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, from just the outside looking at, because clearly we don't understand how it all works, they're their own worst enemies in a lot of cases. And I'm not against the fact that Batman sells really well. Clearly, let's put out more Batman books because people keep buying them. If we quit buying them, they'll quit making so many of them. Just like the X-Men books, just like the whatever. There's clearly a desire for some of that stuff. I mean, you look at, we're picking on DC right now, but you look at DC's stuff and what's coming out, how much of it is somehow falls under the world of Batman. There's new Harley books coming out. There's more new Joker books coming out, under the Black Label kind of stuff and whatnot. Good selling alternative book that's coming out right now is a, Batman based book from Sean Phillips, the White Knight stuff, and then the new one. It's so Batman's what's selling. It's hard for them to walk away from the Batman part of it, but it's all this. Like I said, Dan drives me crazy almost all the time. I think he does occasionally have a good vision. I kudos to him for having the bravery to do things like the New 52. As much as some bad things came around from it that I don't care for, a lot of great stuff came out of the New 52. So I'm not against it. He it's really easy to quote him saying asinine stuff.
This is true.
in my opinion. And it seems like every year he comes out, he'll ramble on something and you're just like, man, what are you doing? And this, for me, it just kills me because I know he has to answer to other people, but he's the ultimate editor, right? He's the top editor. He's the yes man on most of the comics now, because Jim Lee is all digital, the electronic end of things largely, isn't he? Mostly, with a few other little things along the way. And of course, there is no Jeff Johns anymore, so it's just the two of them. What the hell?
Yeah. Didio is an easy target for us because he's constantly contradicting himself, either directly or through what he says and what his company is doing, such as in this case. But speaking of Jim Lee and the digital side of comics, there's some other disheartening news.
Digital's dead.
So while the DC Universe service app is thriving, according to Jim Lee,
is it? Okay,
that's what he
says.
For
a while, people made it sound like, oh no, it's going to go under. It's going to.
Well, that's because of the
Warner's going to suck it up or whatever.
That's because of the whole merger thing, right?
Right. Okay.
And what's going to happen with the HBO, right? HBO Plus, or I don't know what they're calling it these days, but anyway, this apparently DC's individual digital comics are not doing as well. In fact, what Lee says is that they've hit a wall. The sales have hit a wall. He says, I think it's been pretty flat in recent years, which is a little disheartening. A lot is moving to subscription, meaning the DC Universe thing, that is having a downward pressure on transactional sales. But I think it's discouraging in general because everyone talks about digital being the future. If there's anything that should continue to grow year in, year out, it should be that channel. The fact is that it's kind of plateaued and we've hit a wall, speaks to a lot of different things. We need to reinvent what we're doing digitally. So there's that refrain again. We need to do something different. The subscription service that we're doing on DC Universe is part of that. We just have to get better at marketing to people that know our characters, love our characters, but aren't buying comics. Well, isn't that what you're supposed to be doing day to day anyway?
But they are. You quit buying individual DC comics because you have a subscription to the.
No, that's not why.
Why then?
I'm not using the DC Universe app to read stuff that I would normally buy in. You're just using it for
old content.
Old content, yeah.
Is new content being put on?
Yes. Much like when, they still do, I believe, like on Comixology, they would release things and then after a time, the price would go down, right? So there's always this lag of new material coming out from DC that would appear on Comixology. Same thing with the DC Universe app.
Right.
So for example, they just got into, I believe we're 3 or 4 issues in, don't quote me on this, but the Scott Snyder written Justice League run. So I don't know how many issues.
So that's like 4 or 5 months behind.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, because that comes out like twice a month. So
right, I forget that part.
Yeah. So I don't know. To me, they're doing it to themselves. Then why would I? I mean, if I can wait. If I'm waiting for a trade, it's the same thing as waiting for a trade to start reading this thing digitally, and I can, for whatever, $70 for the year. If I buy it for the year, I can read tons of old comics. I'm 5 months behind on reading current comics, and I get to watch a bunch of TV shows on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Why? So why would I consume those things the other way?
Is that the problem, or so you're presupposing that it's the subscription that's causing this, right?
I'm saying it's one of it.
It's one aspect, okay?
Because, like I said, if I'm getting them there, because I'm getting the app for all the other stuff, so I can watch Doom Patrol. Why
buy them elsewhere?
Right, unless I really think I have to be reading them right this second.
Well, that's the point I was going to bring up, is that, sure, some people are going to be like that, where it's like, well, I'm already paying this. Why would I buy them separately so I can read them now? I'll just wait 6 months. Mm-hmm. So if you have the patience, then obviously the subscription is for you. I guess what I'm curious about is how much of the subscription service is impacting those digital sales. I think we're making an assumption that it does, and that's a very good assumption, I think. But to what degree is it really, or is the problem different?
Well, that's they probably don't market that stuff well enough to other consumers, the digital world out there of reading and whatnot. I mean, how much marketing do we ever see outside of what's already comics?
Well, speaking of that, this is a perfect example of this, Travis. I don't know if you've seen this. There were a couple weeks ago, I was watching something. I don't remember what channel it was on, or what streaming service it was on, but there was a commercial for Frank Miller and who's doing the art on Superman Year One. I'm blanking. Yeah. Anyway, Superman Year One. JR, right? John Romita?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you saw an ad for that, huh?
I saw an ad for that. If I did not know what that comic was about already, all I could tell you as a newbie, so I had Kitcher watch this. I said, "What is this about?" Superman. Okay. Anything else? No. Because the commercial was crap.
Yeah.
It did not do its job, which is to sell the comic. It was more like a reminder to people like me, hey, Frank Miller has a new comic out.
Right.
What the hell? Why even put the money into that if you're not going to try and sell to potential new readers?
Right. Because Frank Miller's name isn't going to mean anything to most of my family.
Probably,
even. And my family
but Superman does, and a Year One take on this well-known character, perfect opportunity for people to go, oh, I like Superman, or this is a place to start. Okay. But they didn't tell you anything about it. They didn't even tell you, I mean, the title itself, I think, flashed at the very end of it, and then it was done. It wasn't like they lingered on it so that you could burn that image into your eyeballs so that you remember what it was. It was the worst comic book commercial I've ever seen, and that's saying a lot. We've had some really crappy comic book commercials over the years. The few that we've actually gotten.
Mm-hmm.
So I take it you didn't see that commercial.
No, I haven't.
Maybe it's on YouTube somewhere. You should look it up.
Yeah, I have to look to see. Yeah, the whole. I don't know. It just feels to me like in this day and age, with all the content that's being used, obviously to generate movies and all that kind of stuff, which is where the real money's at, as far as the corporate overlords are concerned. Clearly, who cares what happens in a Marvel comic when those Marvel movies are making billions of dollars, right? So it just seems to me, to some degree, it's surprising that those corporate overlords don't see the comics as being the place that information comes from, for them to use ultimately in some fashion, even if it's loosely, to tell the stories they're telling. There hasn't been a single superhero movie, I don't believe, that's been put out, as far as from the big two anyway, that the story isn't based on something that was already produced in the comic book. Why aren't they spending more money on ensuring that comic books stay successful, not because they want the comic book to sell itself, but to keep enough of the creators employed doing said comic books, because that's where the information that's going to inform the movies comes from.
Because they already have enough IP. They don't need to create more. They don't need to promote it.
They can
have enough.
Tap the stuff from the 70s because that's going to be good content for now.
I don't know. I think my comment is facetious because it's very short-sighted on their part, I think.
Right. That's why I'm just surprised that, comics should be able to make money and support themselves in some sense, but I just feel like that it should
be an investment.
Right. The legacy part of it. The looking at the long picture. What's the long picture of this whole thing going to be? Not the today. I understand that the comic of right now that's coming out right now is a piece of pop culture of today, but it's clearly being used in a different way now. And it's clearly not owned. It's not owned by comic book fans. It's owned by people who are, it's all about money. That's what it's about. It's about making shareholders money. It's not about the love of the medium or the love of those characters. But still, and I'm not saying that the people that are in love with the characters necessarily should be in charge, because sometimes you can't quit navel gazing to see the bigger picture. Then.
Right.
But I don't think the people at the top are seeing maybe that bigger picture either.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I totally agree with that one.
So I don't know.
All right, shall we move on?
Sure.
Well, unfortunately, the next item on the list is a sad note. Again, I've said this before, Travis. It seems like we can't go one news episode without finding out that someone in the that we grew up reading or whatnot has died, and this is no exception. Ernie Colón died after battling cancer. He was 88. I find this particularly interesting because I just on a Legion Project episode with Peter Rios, we talked about Ernie Colón did some art for a few Legion comics that we've talked about. So and I gushed quite a bit the first issue that we talked about. I can't remember which one it was now, but I was really impressed with what Colón did in that. And to see, that he's died, now is unfortunate. He, in case people don't know, he's a co-creator for, Eric, Son of Thunder, which is a series I've always wanted to read. And probably he's more known for Amethyst, Princess of Gemworld, mm-hmm. which is also a comic I, have not read and have always wanted to.
Fun. It's fun.
You read it? You read the original?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Not only was he an artist, he served as a DC editor. He oversaw Wonder Woman, Flash, and Green Lantern. He also worked at Marvel. He co-created Damage Control along with Dwayne McDuffie. I don't know how well known Ernie Colón's work is to perhaps younger readers. But it's of note. He definitely had an interesting and striking visual style that you would not normally see in superhero comics. So people should check out his work for sure. So was there anything other than Amethyst that you recall reading of Mr. Colón's work?
I mean, not off the top of my head, but I know that I have and clearly read stuff that he had a hand in editing through DC and whatnot. So yeah, it's just always going to be. we're at that age, and they're at that. I know those creators are at that age that, unfortunately, I think we're just going to see more and more of it as we go along doing these types of shows.
Yeah.
So I just always hope that, you hear all the, how creators were treated and, they don't make any money and they help create all this content and the Jack Kirby and Superman creator, horror stories kind of thing. And you think, I just always hope that these, people didn't die like Bill Finger in obscurity, kind of a thing, I guess is what I always hope for, that they had good lives at the end of their careers when they didn't have a career anymore, that they got enough of whatever they needed to then, survive kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Cause they put out so much stuff that I enjoy, that it pains me to think that, these people put out all this great product and then, like I said, either lived in obscurity or the fame isn't the important part. The fact that they, had money to live comfortable lives the rest of their lives kind of thing, considering how much money is generated off of the stuff that they help, put in place.
Oh, so. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll use the segue of Green Lantern to the next thing, Travis. So I forget, are you reading The Green Lantern by Morrison and Sharp?
I read like the first 5 issues or so. I like the art. I know it's a Morrison story, so I know it's got places to go at some point. It's still Hal Jordan, though, man.
Oh, jeez.
I know, right? It's a horrible
Grant
hang-up.
Morrison can't get you interested in Hal Jordan.
No, him as being the tough cop. I thought I was going to like it, and then
well, the series is ending at issue number 12, Travis. So you're not going to miss out on much, I guess.
So it's ending because they're ending it, right? Not ending because it's not selling.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's the case. They didn't say that, but I mean, there was some speculation. I think perhaps we even talked about this on a previous show, but how long are they going to actually be doing this, right?
Right.
And so I think they also mentioned too that maybe they did build it into this when they first announced it, was that they do a bit, they do it like in seasons type of thing. And so it was officially announced that the Green Lantern would be ending at issue number 12. Morrison and artist Hermonico, I think is how you pronounce that, they're going to launch a 3-issue Green Lantern Dark Stars miniseries. And Liam Sharp said that he and Morrison would be back with the Green Lantern season 2 down the road.
Cool for those fans. I mean, I like the way it looked, and I know there are lots of people who are digging it and whatnot. So
yeah, it was. I haven't been that big of a Liam Sharp fan, but boy, he made a big impression on me with that first issue. So,
does that mean in the in-between there really isn't a Green Lantern book other than the miniseries?
Oh, I was going to say, I forgot to mention this. I didn't put this in the notes, but I did read it. I think this is considered out of continuity. Pretty sure. Pretty sure the
is there still a Green Lantern book running right now?
Well, just this one.
Okay. So there isn't that's what I'm getting at, is that there isn't a Green Lantern book.
Once this ends, yeah, that's true.
Well, I just think that's interesting. I mean, because I would consider Green Lantern to be clearly not the Trinity, but just this side of it. If there's a Flash book, there should be a Green Lantern
book. Yeah.
Book.
Yeah, right?
To me, it's strange that the core Justice League, you'd think each one of those people would probably have their own book. And the Green Lantern's always had a book, right? I mean, I don't remember there being a time when there wasn't a Green Lantern book.
Well, no, there have been times where
No Green Lantern book?
Yeah. Well, this is back in the 70s. He didn't have a book for a while.
Okay.
I might be wrong about that, but yeah, I hadn't considered that. You're right, because this is the only Green Lantern book right now. And when it ends at 12 and they go into the Dark Stars thing, are they not going to have any? Yeah, that's a good point. And I agree with you. That seems weird. Green Lantern should have a book, especially if Flash does, like you said. If any of the Green Lantern or any of the Justice League members aren't going to have a book, it should be Flash.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I'm not a Flash fan.
I'm not either.
Flash though either, but
I'm just
teasing. Just surprises. Like I said, it just surprises me that there isn't. I mean, that's just to me, that's always been a kind of a staple book for a very long time.
Well, I mean, the Jeff Johns helmed Green Lantern book was extremely popular, so much so, as you recall, that when they did the New 52, they largely left that continuity in place, even though it was supposed to be erased, just like they did with Batman, right?
Right.
So it's very strange to see how, I guess, the Green Lantern has fallen from the heyday of the pre-New 52 and shortly thereafter. I still love the Green Lantern book. Of course, I love Morrison, this. But I really loved the Robert Venditti written Green Lantern book that we got before the Morrison book.
The core book? The one where it was kind of...
Yeah. Anything Venditti writing Green Lantern, I was reading, because I think there was a couple different books over the course of those few years. But it was good. I want to clarify. I said something about the DC continuity. The publisher has confirmed Black Stars will be set outside the primary DC continuity. But that leads me, because what we're getting out of the Green Lantern run right now leads into the Black Stars book, I thought. So does that mean the Green Lantern Morrison written book is also out of continuity? It's confusing.
I don't know. Wouldn't matter to me though. I mean, as a reader, I mean, whatever.
Which Green Lantern would, if any of the Green Lantern had a book that you could choose that you would want to read, which one would you choose?
John Stewart.
Yeah. Well, I would choose Alan Scott, but that's just me.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing, though. I mean, that would be. I'd be all down for that too, but that's then you're flirting with Earth 2, and
yeah, I know.
I'm down for
whatever.
All of that. But
yeah, just do it. Give me a freaking Earth 2 book that doesn't tie into the main DC universe. Give me any other Earth whatever, Earth number whatever book, and I'd be happy to read some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it was good. Okay. This is again San Diego Comic-Con related, Travis. We had talked about this a long time ago. I do recall this specifically. The Comic-Con Museum. Do you remember this?
Yes.
And we were like, who did we basically like, why do we need a Comic-Con museum?
Right. When every year there's an actual Comic-Con.
No, right? And well, so I saw this, I had to laugh, but this is real money we're talking about now. They raised over $500,000 during the SDCC preview night event for the Comic-Con Museum. $500,000.
Why didn't they raise that for something worthwhile? I'm serious. Yeah. I mean, good for them, I guess. Yeah. I don't understand the idea. I mean, okay.
Why not take that money or try to raise money for the Heroes Initiative or
right. That's my thought. Why? I mean, I guess I could get the idea behind a museum, someplace that kind of. I just don't understand the idea of a museum that's celebrating a con. I get the idea of celebrating comics or Western comics or however you want to encompass that, and clearly. San Diego Comic-Con could clearly be part of that celebration or museum of said thing. To me, it's just weird that it is a museum of the con that's there every year, kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know it has history. I get that it has history, but
so write a book,
right?
Detailing the history. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, obviously. Many people think that this is a good idea because they pitched in some money, but yeah, not us. Okay, finally on the list here, this was a late breaking news item that I added last night, actually, at the time of this recording. So Art Spiegelman, the creator of Mouse, which is one of the seminal works of comic bookdom. He, which and is a must read. I think anybody who is interested in comic books as a medium, comic book or history, being told through the medium of comic books, they definitely need to read Mouse, and it's particularly pertinent to today's American political climate. Considering this is a book about what Jewish people went through by the Nazis during World War II. So, what's interesting about this is that Mr. Spiegelman was asked to write an essay to be published in the Golden Age Marvel Comics 1939 and 1949 collection, and so in that essay. He wrote some stuff about talking about Captain America, the Captain America villain, the Red Skull, and he said, quote, "In today's all-too-real world, Captain America's most nefarious villain, the Red Skull, is alive on screen, and an orange skull haunts America." Clearly a reference to our American president, current American president. Anyway, Spiegelman then claims that the Folio Society, who was the group that asked him to this is a UK-based Marvel Comics publishing partner. They asked him to provide that essay, and according to Spiegelman, they asked him to change it. It says here, he was told to make the change by the Folio Society, who Spiegelman says cited Marvel. So the Folio Society is saying Marvel said this. Marvel is not allowing its publications to take a political stance, unquote. So Spiegelman then withdrew the essay rather than make the changes, and then allowed the Guardian newspaper to publish the piece. So some interesting things to unpack here. I applaud Mr. Spiegelman for his integrity to his work, his words, by withdrawing that essay and then publishing it elsewhere if he so chooses. But while I agree with his stance and and whatnot, at the same time, Marvel is a business, and they get to dictate the terms, so they can choose not to be political. And I find that the dichotomy, getting tongue tied here as I'm talking a lot, Travis. The dichotomy here of these two kind of stances, I find them interesting. So what's your takeaway of this story?
Well, I mean, I agree with you. Obviously, Marvel's a business. It's their product. They choose what they want to do with it or not to do with it. I think it's interesting that they make the not allowing publications to take a political stance when clearly the work itself that is being put in has lots of political stances in it. I mean, we're talking comics from 1939 to 1949, so that's a lot of war comics, a lot of punchy Nazis,
a lot of anti-Nazi, anti-Hitler,
anti-fascist stuff.
Yeah, anti-fascist stuff. Yes,
right.
Captain America. Well, what was on Captain? What was it? It was Captain America #1, right? Where he's punching Hitler on the face,
right?
In the face,
right?
Come on.
Right. So, and I don't. I mean, and these are alleged. This is what was said. This is what they were told. Sort of thing. I mean, I think that if Marvel would have said, "We want this to be timeless," this essay to be timeless. Which, I mean, I don't know how you do that with an essay anyway. But so obviously, maybe you don't make the Trump reference because Trump isn't going to be timeless, except he will, unfortunately. But so I don't. I mean, I'm. Yeah, I don't. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm of two sides to me. It seems. Well, it seems cowardly if Marvel is choosing not to put this in because there's one reference to an orange skull haunts America. that to me strikes me as being pretty cowardly. I guess is my take on it. But that's because I agree, I guess, and don't disagree. Maybe I'd be offended if I had a different political take on the whole thing. But to be not political though seems strange to me, like I said, for what it's attached to. Mm-hmm. I would get that if they were doing some omnibus of Power Pack comic, you wouldn't necessarily put, really politically engaging things in it. Though for me, when it's hard for me to talk about because for me, it's beyond politics. With the current climate that seems to be, especially, when he's referencing America and whatnot, and currently what's in America, it seems like we've got an uptick in fascist type activity and whatnot. And we seem to have an administration that doesn't seem to care. It's not political so much as it's survival. I don't know.
Well, and it's very harrowing. It's concerning for sure. I found that. Well, I'm glad you brought up the whole. You brought up the broader context because we have this because I saw some reactions to this on online and to for example, comics have always been political. We're making that point here. especially the Golden Age stuff. I've said before on the show too that art is political. Mm-hmm. To declare that comics shouldn't be political is not understanding what comics, where comics come from, how they're created, why they're created. Superman was created in response to various social ills. It was power fantasy, literally power fantasy for two Jewish boys. And that of course morphed into, comics being not just Marvel Comics. DC did this too. Anti-fascist propaganda.
Right.
And some people have cited comic books as an influential force into us getting into World War II, because at that time we were much an isolationist country,
100%.
And it took a lot of it. Well, it took the bombing of Pearl Harbor to really get us into it, but we were ignoring the threat that was Hitler. Except for, some people were pushing and providing aid and all that stuff. But comics was doing its part by Captain America punching Hitler, for example, and pushing war bonds, in comics, things like that. So the idea that comics shouldn't be political is just ludicrous to me. But, again, while I agree with you, again, this is very much a what's your stance on this, your political stance, right? I agree with you. What does it matter that Marvel, or you said cowardly? They're cowardly. Why does it matter if this guy Spiegelman puts in this thing, this topical reference in this anthology, this collection? Marvel certainly thinks it's important for some reason. Oh, and this is the other aspect I forgot to bring up. On the left, people are talking about, well, who's behind Marvel Comics right now, right? Who and is a Trump supporter, right. And so this appears to them to be like, some sort of that is political in itself, perhaps. So I don't know. It's just a very interesting situation. But as what it boils down to is that Spiegelman had something to say. And decided that he'd rather pull this essay from the book, and as opposed to bowing to some sort of editorial pressure.
Well, this is probably more effective. I mean, if he wanted this to see the light of day from a purely getting the most eyes on it kind of thing, it's going to get more eyes on it than would have been in a
collection of Golden Age Marvel comics. Yeah.
In a UK publication of a collection of books of an essay that probably 50% of the people who buy the book wouldn't even read the essay. Kind of a thing, because I seem to find a lot of people's like, so did you read that essay at the beginning of that collection? No. I don't know. I mean, this, if he had something to say, he's clearly going to get to say it now. It's going to be published at a much greater rate than it would have been published otherwise, kind of a deal. Not implying that was the whole point, was to make it, to sensationalize it or whatever. To me, it's just bizarre. You clearly picked a person who has a particular frame of reference and is quite famous for making a comic about the era that of comics are talking about here. I mean, I don't, so to have I haven't read it, so I don't know exactly what it has to say. If it's been published yet, I haven't read it.
It's on The Guardian right now.
Okay. I need to go and read it then to know exactly what it had to say. But in reference to this era of comics, like we talked about, it's an era that is a large chunk of the famous part of it anyway, is focused on this. So I don't, what did they want for an essay? I mean, clearly the people who originally asked him for an essay asked for an essay because they thought they were going to get kind of what he put out. And I'm guessing, in some sense, this is what the expectation was going to be. Maybe not to, reference a modern person in particular. I mean, he didn't
particular
name him,
person. Mm-hmm.
but he didn't name him. I mean, it's a.
Yeah,
to me, yes. But to me, the essay is okay in that sense, in that unless he actually says Trump in there and literally names him, I don't know. It's not, to me, that's an acceptable kind of thing. I could get why maybe they wouldn't want him directly naming from a I don't know though, because I'm almost positive I've seen essays about Watchmen, and they specifically talk about the Reagan era. It's not like they shy away from the name. I mean, so is it the fact he's writing this and it's currently now that makes it politics instead of historical?
Yeah.
I mean, so if this was written 40 years from now, this essay would be fine because then it's history. Unless, of course, we're not allowed to write history because the wrong people continue to win elections and we're going to live in a world of fiction. I don't know. To me, it's just, like I said, to me, it seems cowardly. I don't. And unnecessary. They created more. I think they created more grief for themselves than was necessary. Yeah. I don't think this is going to make Marvel the Golden Age collection sell better. Because I know some controversy is, any traction you can get is good traction, right? Even if it's supposedly controversial, it still sells. But I don't see how this sells that, by them doing that. But yeah, does that mean I'm not going to buy a Marvel product? No. But I do think it's a dumb decision. So,
Well, they did apparently they did get Roy Thomas to write the introduction to the book.
I'd be curious to see that.
Yeah,
just to see how. I mean, is it generic? I mean, is it just kind of some kind of?
Well, I imagine so, since they didn't want things to Marvel didn't want things to be or to have a political stance. So must just be Roy Thomas's perspective on that time period of Marvel Comics. I would imagine, anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, just there's a lot of. How funny to me how comics are can be divisive.
Oh, 100%.
And it just seems weird to me, having grown up reading comics as long as we have, and they were just sources of entertainment to us. And as we got older, they got more sophisticated, and our taste did too. And yeah, like you mentioned before, some comics that would reference Reagan or other political figures. A lot of the British invasion stuff that we were starting to read in the late 80s and early 90s.
References to Margaret Thatcher.
Margaret Thatcher crap. And yeah, I don't know. I repeating myself now, but for people to claim that comics shouldn't be political or they weren't political, just don't know what the hell they're talking about. And I mean, this is not even comics. This is a guy writing an introduction to a collection of comics. So right. I don't know. It's very strange. But the whole argument about comics and politicization or I guess politicization. Politicization. That's a $5 word of comics is an interesting topic these days to me. Okay. Maybe we should have ended on the other thing, Travis. But that's all I have for news at this point.
Oh, I got one more.
Okay.
Got one more.
Excellent.
Shocking thing. Well, it's only shocking actually if you know me. Probably nothing with your story, but if you know me, I'm going to be collecting a Deadpool comic.
I saw that you said that was a possibility on Twitter. What? Explain,
yes, exactly.
Sir.
Anybody who knows me knows just how much I absolutely hate Deadpool as a character. I think he's the dumbest thing ever. His constant breaking of the fourth wall, the moronic humor they put behind him. Absolutely do not like it. I've had Gail Simone scold me personally for disliking Deadpool and whatnot. I just despise the character. But Kelly Thompson, they just announced a few days ago that Kelly Thompson's going to be writing I Run a Deadpool. And as I've talked about earlier on the show, I really like her writing. I think she's got great comedic talent. So I'm going to give it a shot, and we'll see how bad I break out in hives. Anyway.
Make sure you do a before and after photo.
Yes. Anyway, to end on a lighter note, I'm gonna try Deadpool. Ugh.
I'm looking forward to that video.
Yes. Alrighty.
And speaking of videos, Travis, how can people find you? Where can they go to view these comic book related videos that you produce?
So yeah, just go to YouTube, and I am Oddfellows Thoughts. Make sure you do all Oddfellows Thoughts. Otherwise, you get off into other weird corners of the universe.
All right. Well, Travis, again, thank you. I'm glad that we were finally able to get back together and do this. We do plan to continue to do this, right?
Yep.
Good.
More often, even.
Well, we'll try once a month, maybe every couple months. It depends on the news. How slow the news month was. So anyway, if anybody has any comments about what we've talked about, we've had a few interesting topics this show. You can email me at longboxreview@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter. I'm at longboxreview, and Travis is at...
I am at _gaunt_man.
There you go. All righty. You're never going to change it.
No, I'm not.
You keep saying it, but you're never going to change it. All righty. Well, like I said, Travis, thank you very much. And everybody else, thanks for listening. Go read some comics.